Hi everybody, I'm Professor Rad, and today we're going to talk about percentiles a little bit. Now I should mention in this video we're going to talk more conceptually about percentiles, so we're not going to find a specific percentile per se, but we're going to talk about what a percentile means and how it can be used to compare things. So in the previous bunch of videos, we've been looking at measures of center, sort of what's typical or what's average from a data set. But sometimes that's not a useful, it's useful, but it's not a complete picture of what's going on. So for example, here I have two data sets of temperatures, and they're telling us each of these data sets has a mean of 63 degrees Fahrenheit. So if I tell you these two cities have the same mean temperature, then you're going to be thinking, oh, well, they must be pretty, similar in climate. But if I look at what's going on here, in this city A, my temperatures start at 22 and go up to 102. So 63 might be the mean, but these values range ridiculously. Whereas for data set B, we start out with a temperature of 60 and we go up to 68. So this is a much more sort of temperate situation where everything is like fairly similar. So we want some kind of way of describing how things are spread out and where one value might sit with regards to the other values in a data set. So one way to do this is by using a percentile. So a value is in the pth percentile if it is greater than p% of the data. So if I'm taking a history test and I scored in the 85th percentile, that means that I performed better than 85% of the other people who took the test. And that's really great, right? Cool. I did better than 85% of the room. I'm feeling pretty happy. But let's say instead of like a history test, suppose I scored in the 85th percentile for risk of a particular kind of cancer. Now I'm not so happy because that means I have a greater risk of this cancer than 85% of the population. So having a high percentile or a low percentile isn't inherently a good or bad thing. It just kind of tells you where you sit with regards to the rest of the population. Now, we've actually already been using percentiles. So we've actually, the median is a percentile because the median was the value that split your data set in half. So half of the data values were below and half of the data values were above. So that means the median is the 50th percentile because 50% is below the median. So let's do an example here where we look at the net worth of some presidents and identify or compare. Yeah, we're going to identify some percentile information and do some comparisons. Now for this, I usually like to draw a picture as well to help me visualize what's going on. That's because I kind of have difficulty visualizing pictures in my mind, so I find it helpful to draw them out. So I'm going to get some nice pink paper here to help me out here. So this is the net worth of presidents of the US. So I'm going to start here and end here. So I'm going to say this is the poorest president. So they would be like the 0th percentile, if you will. And over here we have the richest president. So they would be like the 100th percentile. I should also mention the data that comes for this example was before the 2024 election. Okay, so this data was collected when Biden was president. So it says George Washington's net worth is in the 98th percentile of all presidential net worths. Whew, 98th percentile. That's pretty high. So George Washington is up here. So this is like 98%, and this is 2%. Then it says Jimmy Carter's net worth is greater than 44% of all presidential net worths. So he's greater than 44%. So here's about, here's halfway, that's 50%. So if Carter was here, that means he would be greater than 50%. He was only greater than 44%. So let's go ahead and put that here. So that's Jimmy Carter. And then it says about 40% of presidential net worths are greater than John Adams' net worth. Okay, so 40% were greater than John Adams. So again, here's this 50% in the middle. 40% was more than John Adams. So that means that John Adams is going to be about here, right? So this would be about that 40% that was greater than John Adams. And then this would be like 66%. So maybe I should indicate that. This was 44%. So that was Jimmy Carter. John Adams was up here. This was 40%. Right? Yep, 40% were above John Adams. And then Washington was in the 98th percentile. So he was greater than 98%. Okay, cool. So that gives me a sense of some numbers and where they're all lying in relationship to each other. So out of these three, George Washington had the greatest net worth, John Adams was in the middle, and Jimmy Carter was towards the bottom. All right, so we're going to read a bunch of true-false statements and identify whether they're true or false. So the first one says a majority of presidents. Majority means more than half. So more than half of the presidents had a net worth greater than George Washington's. So only 2% were greater than George Washington. That's less than half. So this statement is false. Second, John Adams' net worth is in the 60th percentile. So 60th percentile means that you are greater than 60%. So here was John Adams. 40% was greater than him. So we have to figure out what percent is below John Adams. In other words, John Adams had a greater net worth than this percentage of people. So if this is 40, we can do 100 minus 40. And that'll give us 60%. So John Adams' net worth was greater than 60% of the other presidents. So that means he's in the 60th percentile. So this one is true. A minority, or less than half, so a minority of presidents had a net worth less than Jimmy Carter's. So here's Jimmy Carter. And those who had a net worth less than him, that was 44%. So 44% was less than Jimmy Carter's, and that is less than half. So this is true. Next, we have Jimmy Carter's net worth is less than the median net worth of presidents. Okay, so median means the 50th percentile. Okay, so here's half. And Jimmy Carter fell before the 50th percentile. So this is true. Jimmy Carter's net worth is less than the median. And last, George Washington's net worth is greater than Jimmy Carter's. And we can see that pretty clearly here. George Washington had a greater net worth than Jimmy Carter. So this one is also true. All right. So you can kind of see drawing this picture came in handy quite a bit as we were working through this. I find these sorts of questions difficult to do without the picture because you're often looking at like to the right or to the left. There's greater thans and less thans everywhere. So kind of sorting that information into an image can be really helpful when you are comparing percentiles. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. In the next video, we'll talk about how you can find some percentiles. And we're going to be looking at specific percentiles, primarily the 25th, the 50th, and the 75th percentile. So I'm looking forward to seeing you then. And in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.